Hello and welcome to episode 152 of Controller Club, the friendly face gaming space, a podcast where three friends from three different continents share in one love, and that is video games. On today's show, a Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4 review as we finally venture into Seattle. But before all that, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Klein Felt, and alongside me today are two of my best friends in the whole wide fungal apocalypse. First, coming to us from across the pond, it is the digital art daredevil himself, Tom Drew. Tom, how are you? How are things? And would you serenade us with some Take On Me sometime? I'd really like that.
Well, I mean, when you guys were around in London, I was in the shower, and I came out of the shower, and I was told that you guys were listening to me singing in the shower. So, in some
You
ways,
know,
I kind of already
we haven't had
serenaded
that
you
news jingle for a while.
guys. It's true.
We
I mean,
haven't.
like, it's a bit of shame. Do we need a Cordyceps Club news jingle? What would that even be? I mean,
Oh, get thinking.
yeah,
Hey, you've got
maybe.
3 weeks to figure it out, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. We'll see. But if you guys, honestly, if you want to serenade anytime, I'll give it to you. That's my guarantee.
Okay, be careful what you wish for, sir. Next up, it is journalist extraordinaire, the Australian abroad / the Canadian in training, Lauren Rouse. Lauren, how are you doing? And are you as excited for Tom to sing to us as I am?
I mean, I was present for the moment in question when he was told not to sing anymore, so be that what it may. But yeah, I won't be serenading either of you, but I will perhaps die for both of you, so I hope that's enough.
Aw,
That is
that's
nice.
nice. I like that.
Yeah.
What do I have to do now? Am I gonna admit a pregnancy on the show here today? Is that about to happen?
I mean, it would be on theme, so yeah, maybe
It
you have
would
to
be.
do
It
that.
would be on
150
theme.
episodes, we're cooking.
Let's do it. Let's get into the reason we're here today. Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4. Cordyceps Club is in full bloom. Lauren Rouse, take it away.
Okay, that's right. Cordyceps Club number 4 for this season. It's the episode's titled Day 1, and it's written by Craig Mazin, directed by Kate Herron. As always, before we get into the events of the episode, let's give our general spoiler-free impressions. I'll go first. I think this is up there with probably my top 2 or 3 favorite Last of Us episodes of all time. This was excellent. I really love it when the show can sort of balance the feeling of playing the game, but then also adding that extra layer of something new. So it makes me feel that I'm satisfied, but also surprised by what's happened. And I think that's exactly what this episode was. I played through this sequence in the game last night after watching the episode, and I could see very clearly how things were translated, and it was somehow the exact same and then somehow completely different. And I thought that was quite remarkable. But yeah, basically, all previous sins are redeemed. I regret voicing any issues I had in previous episodes because basically at this point, it's like every issue I have, they rectify in a later episode. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where I kind of half wish that we could watch the season as a binge drop, because then I would understand where things were going and why they're making these changes, which I don't always sit right with me in the moment, but then it comes around and it's fine. So I guess I just need to trust more in Craig and Neil because, yeah, this episode definitely convinced me. But anyway, what do you guys think?
I thought I was going to come on here and was going to say something and be completely out to lunch, and you both were going to go, oh, I don't know. I'm with you, Lauren. I think that this might be my favorite non-Bill and Frank episode in the series. I think that this is probably the most Last of Us episode we've gotten. It's perfectly translating the experience of the games. A lot of it is one for one, but they make these exciting changes, and it is this little just thesis statement almost of what the Last of Us franchise is. It is terrifying and harrowing, but also you have these incredible highs and emotional moments, and it's yeah, they're zombies, but you're more bought into the characters living in this world. And I thought they had some fun with the adaptation. I'm excited that Jeffrey Wright is in our lives again, as terrifying as he is on screen. But I was very pleasantly surprised, and you know what, genuinely thrilled watching this episode. There were definitely moments where it's I had the blanket up to my knows because my heart was racing so fast. So I think episode 4, this is my favorite episode of the season by far.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you guys. Like, I think this is probably is my favorite of the season so far. I think it was just like, yeah, a very solid episode, and yeah, kind of just like echoing what Lauren said. I think a lot of the issues that I've had in terms of like, yeah, some of the changes they made and decisions they made, I'm starting to see like the vision now of what they wanted season 2 to be. There are obviously still some hanging threads that I'm still waiting for them to kind of address. But yeah, a lot of them were kind of covered here, especially the ones relating to Ellie and Dina, of course. And yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. Like, and I say it was a lot of fun to watch because like this is probably like the most amount of fun we're gonna have for a while, because I feel like it's just gonna go like sad, like a lot of it's sad from the rest of the season and potentially season 3 from here. But yeah, I just thought like just the way I think the way the episode like started, I thought was like really strong, and it ended very strong as well. Um, and I mean, there's also some great stuff in the middle too, but it really like hammered, like it just had a great introduction and great ending to me, and that those are the kind of moments that stood out. Which we'll get into a bit more, but yeah, really like the episode overall.
All right, well, let's not waste time. Let's get into some of those high moments at the beginning. So this episode opens on a flashback to the Seattle quarantine zone in 2018. And we're in a truck with these Fedra soldiers who are kind of laughing around and joking. There's one soldier who's telling a story. He's played by Josh Peck. Shout out to all the Drake and Josh fans out there. And he's telling a story about how, as Fedra soldiers, they've been like, beating up citizens, and they're kind of all laughing about it, or they call them voters. And there's a new kind of soldier in the group who's questioning, like, oh, why do you call them voters? And this gets the attention of Isaac, who is played by Jeffrey Wright. And he's the patrol leader. He's sitting in the corner of the van, and he says, because we took away their rights, their right to vote. And so that's why we call them voters. It's to mock them. And so this is not sitting right with him, how these soldiers have been treating these people, and that he is one of them. And after this, the truck pulls up at a blocked road, and the road behind them starts to be filled with these people. And the soldiers get a bit nervous. They want to go out and suss out the situation, but Isaac says, wait, I'll go talk to them. He takes newbie soldier with him, and he goes outside and he talks to this woman who introduces herself as Hanrahan. And they sort of exchange basically no words. And then Isaac turns back to the truck, throws a grenade, closes the door, blows up all the soldiers inside, kills the driver, and Hanrahan shakes his hands like, welcome to the fight. Then Isaac turns to the newbie soldier who's just been watching this whole thing unfold in kind of shock and terror. And he says, now you make your choice. This was entirely new for us. We got to see some backstory with Isaac. What do you guys think of his introduction here, learning a little bit more about him, that he was a Fedra soldier?
Yeah, I really loved it. I like I said, I think like it started off with a bang, literally. But this introductions, I mean, I love Jeffrey Wright. Like, I think he's incredible in everything. He has so much presence. Like, even when, I mean, if you're like you coming into the show, you probably don't have that sense. But I think all of us kind of like knew Jeffrey Wright was in the scene, and you could like sense that he was there almost. Like this kind of looming thing of like waiting to kind of reveal himself. Like hanging over this conversation that these Fedra soldiers are having, and yeah, really just built this like really cool tension. And I love the kind of wordless agreement that he has with the WLF, and how that all plays out. And then how that like continues into another scene with Isaac later in the episode. Yeah, just a really strong first impression with Isaac, and I was surprised that we didn't get a bit more of him this episode, but I'm hoping we continue to get like even more of him throughout the end of the season and in season 3. So yeah, I love the scene. I thought it was great.
I'm with you there, Tom. I think that just this introduction did such a great job of immediately showing, obviously we as game players know the like ruthless nature of Isaac and who this person is, but showing the people who have no idea who this person is right off the bat, like, oh, he doesn't play by the rules. I mean, there are no rules in the post-apocalypse, but the ones that there are, he is just throwing them away. And I think that that's just like such a fun wild card threat to throw into this mixture that we already have Ellie and Dina on this revenge tour. We already have the Abby and that crew and that sort of thing. But then to add this just kind of ticking time bomb that it kind of seems like no matter who's in the room with him, he's going to come out on top is just a lot of fun, or as much fun as you can have in this kind of setting. And I thought, yeah, the introduction here was a little surprised to see Josh Peck in this specific role because I don't think we'll ever see him again. I mean, who knows? Maybe we get a whole Jeffrey Wright flashback at some point. But I dug this. I dug it. I love the other scene we get with him later too, and I just this was the number one thing I was most excited for coming into season 2 was just getting more of this character because it kind of teased that. And so to finally see it realized is just so cool.
Well, let's stay on Isaac and talk about his other scene, which happens kind of midway through the episode, but he only gets 2 scenes, so we may as well bookend them. But basically, the second scene occurs in present day, like 10 years later, and Isaac has a Seraphite prisoner, like kind of chained up, naked in this kitchen, and he's kind of chatting to him while he's heating up a copper pot on the gas stove, and he wants to know when the scars are going to attack next. And the Seraphite's not giving him anything, so he burns him with the copper pot. And it's uncovered during their conversation that both sides here, the WLF and the Seraphites, have been trading blows, but neither can really figure out who started it. They're just kind of stuck in this cycle of violence. And so when the Scar tells Isaac that the new WLF members turn to their cause every day, but no Seraphites become wolves, Isaac just loses it and he shoots him in the head. And at the same time, there are these soldiers standing guard outside the room who can hear the torturing that's going on inside, and one of them's kind of like, wow, this is crazy, I can't believe he's doing that. And the soldier next to him is like, the Scar got what he deserved. And we reveal that it's the newbie soldier who we'd seen in the opening scene. Now 10 years later, he's a member of the WLF and clearly very desensitized to what's going on. So what were your thoughts on this follow-up scene with Isaac? Now we see him 10 years later, he's very ingrained in the WLF and he's going to these ruthless methods. We did see something, I think, similar to this later in the game in Isaac's scenes, but perhaps not with this much depth. So, Klein, what do you think?
As much as you can love it, I just loved all the Isaac stuff in this episode. The speech heading into the whole like I'm gonna burn this dude's hand was so good because you don't really know what's going on, and he's talking about his life before and how he used to cook for the women he'd bring into his life and wanting these like really fancy set of pots, and who would have known that all it needed was the world to end that he'd get 4. And that's some of my favorite just like mindless villain shit, for lack of a better term. Like I love when the villain is just, I don't even know, like talking so nonchalantly about things when he is like on the other side of the room has this naked man tied up, bloodied and beaten. And I thought Jeffrey Wright did such a great job of playing it. This isn't a kind of corner of Jeffrey Wright I've really seen before. To me, he is like, I know him from Westworld. I know him from Casino Royale. Like he's not usually playing unhinged. And so to like really dive into that after we scratched the surface with it in part 2 was just like, I think what Jeffrey Wright had been wanting to do with this character for a very long time.
It's interesting that you say he's sort of unhinged and that he doesn't play by the rules, because I actually think he's the opposite. I think he's incredibly regimented. And even in that scene with like Abby in episode 2 where she was talking about their commander who says he has a code. So I think Isaac does operate within that. He has really strong morals. And I think that comes from like, which we see here, his background where he was maybe part of the lower working class. He wasn't always able to afford all the things that he would have liked. And he really doesn't take joy in oppressing people like these other Fedra soldiers did, but he's willing to go to any lengths to, I guess, protect his people. And I thought it was interesting that the only time I really saw him maybe cross the line was when the Scar was like, well, we have people coming to our cause every day, but no one's leaving from ours to join yours. And that really pissed off Isaac and led to him killing him. And I thought that was quite interesting because, as we may come to know later in the show, people defecting from the WLF to the Seraphites is a big issue. And so I think it was really cool that they kind of subtly set that up right here.
Yeah, I think like to me, like with Isaac's character, it did kind of seem like he was just like an ends justify the means sort of guy, where it's like like you're kind of saying, Lauren, he's so entrenched in what he believes to be right, like you'll essentially go to any kind of length to see that through, whether it's like torturing this naked Seraphite in a kitchen. But yeah, I mean, this scene I thought was like an incredible display of what Jeffrey Wright can do. Like, sort of to your point, kind of how he's kind of like nonchalantly, like just chatting away. Basically, it kind of reminded me of like Christian Bale in American Psycho with the hip to be square scene. Less jolly, obviously, but it's kind of like, talking about this like random thing, and then he, like does this horrible act. But I love this interplay between the two of them, and how you know Isaac is so entrenched in his beliefs, but the Seraphite is also very much like super faithful and willing to like go to any length to protect his people. And I thought that the moment when he kind of raises his hand the second time was just like so fascinating, and I really love the kind of sense they're giving us with the Seraphites, because we got the kind of setup with them last episode. We see this scene, and then we also see like what else they're capable of in another scene as well. So
Yeah, this is the Seraphite stuff I was like wanting last week when they introduced the family and stuff. Even this scene with Isaac, where they do, like as you said, him holding the hand out the second time. It's just this. It adds this layer of like, oh, like they have this level of faith and commitment to a cause that not even I think the WLF soldiers can have, because it is just this such a blind religious faith, as opposed to just like committing to a military cause.
Yeah, exactly, and that's like almost even more unbreakable, like of a thing, as shown through the scene. So, yeah, I can't wait to see more of the Seraphite stuff as we go on with the season. But yeah, I just thought this scene was just stellar, top to bottom.
Any thoughts on that soldier coming back from the beginning and to the end, seeing his transition?
Yeah, I thought that was a cool way of showing the progression of I guess just like the influence that Isaac has. I wonder
Mm.
if we'll see like a bit more of him, and like how he has changed from that like early scene. Because I don't think they would have highlighted that guy just for this moment. I think we'll probably see him again. But yeah, I like those kind of mini arcs that we see in The Last of Us, and how this world just makes everyone terrible blokes essentially.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think it was also a bit of a comment on like radicalization, and then I think that desensitization in
Yeah.
this world as well, that
Yeah.
he's just like, he was just dead inside,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. He was so kind of like nervous and lively and like eager in that opening scene, and then just to see him 10 years later being like, hearing this guy get shot in the next room and not even batting an eyelid, I was just like, that's full on, man.
Yeah.
So after these scenes, we pick up with Ellie and Dina, who last week we'd seen them arrive in Seattle, and now they're in the heart of the city, searching for supplies, as you do so often in The Last of Us. They don't really come up with much, but Dina finds something that we don't see yet. And so when she rejoins Ellie, they're wandering the streets of Seattle, which is still strangely quiet. They go through Capitol Hill, which is a very friendly LGBT neighborhood, and they kind of question what all these rainbows are about, because, of course, they were born before many of these progressive things happened, and they don't know what all this means. They also come across a lot of dead WLF soldiers. And then eventually Dina points out that there's WLF written on this satellite dish on the TV station in the distance. So they now know at least where to start looking for the WLF, but they have to wait until dark, because otherwise they'll see them coming. So in the meantime, they park Shimmer in a music store, and we get this delightful little scene that's pulled, straight from the game, where Ellie finds a guitar in the shop, and she serenades Dina with this acoustic rendition of Aha's Take On Me. And yeah, after the end of the scene, Dina's crying. I don't know who wasn't crying at this point. And then Ellie says, she's gotten good because of thanks to all those lessons from Joel. So we have to stop and talk about this scene. It's obviously one of the most anticipated moments once we saw it in the trailer to see how this would translate. In my opinion, I think it was probably one of the most romantic scenes I've ever seen on television. Bella Ramsey, I think, deserves a singing career if they want one, and Isabella Merced can have an Oscar if she wants one. But what were your impressions of this?
Yeah, I thought it was incredible. Like, I thought it was just such a well handled scene. Like I said, Bella Ramsey, I think, does an amazing rendition of "Take on Me," and really makes her their own. But also, like you're kind of alluding to, like Isabella Merced's, like, just her reaction to Bella playing,
The
just
way her
like,
face changes from beginning to end is
yeah,
just, I don't know how you teach that.
yeah, it's incredible, and she does a bit more of that, like, throughout the whole episode, and I was just like so impressed with that. Those kind of like subtle facial expressions. Just seeing her like completely enamored and then kind of break down and being a bit more emotional throughout this song. Like, I just thought like it was just perfect, and I think like this probably goes back to like to Kate Herron, who directed this episode, who directed a lot of Loki and Sex Education. Um, and I think she just did an amazing job with like handling these intimate romantic scenes between the two, and yeah, it really lived up to all expectations.
I think something that really impressed me with Bella's performance of the song was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that they're like they sing, like they do singer-songwriter stuff. They haven't released anything, but listening to interviews and stuff, people say that they sing and know how to sing. And something that I think is so beautiful about this moment in the game is that Ashley Johnson's rendition of the song, you can hear her voice breaking in moments, like because Ellie isn't trained and Ellie doesn't have that like honed edge. And I thought that the way that Belly Ramsey sang it and performed it brought that over quite faithfully. There were little moments where it's like, if this was a if this was Christina Aguilera just singing this song, like, or whatever, it would sound like you wouldn't have those imperfections in there. And I thought that that was just, I was wondering how they would play that, and I thought Bella Ramsey did an amazing job. And I just want someone to look at me the way Isabella Merced looks at her at the end of that episode, like at the end of the song, because yeah, she's got tears in her eyes, and it's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. And I think it means more the way that they've structured their relationship, and where like when this occurs in the game, which it's actually an optional thing in the game, you can miss it completely. Ellie and Dina are already together, have been for some time. They already are quite established in their feelings for each other, whereas this was the real like confirmation, perhaps, that if there was any dancing around it before, like this proved that like they're falling for each other. So that was really nice to see translated, and yeah, it was just really beautiful. Also, fun fact that I wanted to point out: while they were going through Capitol Hill, that's a real neighborhood in Seattle. It's also where I got my Last of Us tattoo, and it was for this reason,
Oh,
because it's in the show, because
I
it's in the
was
game.
gonna ask because I was there and couldn't remember. I had tacos there. They were great.
Good tattoos, good tacos, all you need.
exactly.
Okay, unfortunately, this was one of the only nice moments, because we're now going to go back to the dark stuff. So after this, Ellie and Dina head to the TV station, and once they sneak inside, they find that there are in fact WLF soldiers there, but they're all dead. They're strung up by their necks with their guts hanging out, and there's a symbol on the wall written in blood that says "Feel her love," and it's got the Seraphite symbol, so we know it's their doing. And then it's not too long after this that the WLF arrives to find the same situation, and they begin searching the TV station to see if there are any culprits left over. So Ellie and Dina now need to get out of here fast, and it's not easy. And so they kind of sneak around a bit. There's a moment. I played this sequence in the game last night. It's like a large area, and it's pretty much faithfully translated. It's quite a difficult terrain. But anyway, they're sneaking around, and one of the soldiers, Ellie sneaks up on him, has him by the neck, is ready to kill him, and then another soldier finds her and he starts shooting, and then Dina has to shoot him in the back of the head, and Ellie has to knife this guy in the neck. It's all chaos, and they just start running. They get out of the TV station. The WLF is in pursuit, and they make their escape into a narrow gap into the subway tunnels, which they think the WLF won't be able to follow them. But one of the guys radios in, and there's already a patrol in the tunnels waiting for them. But that's not all that's waiting for them. There is also a horde of infected hanging out down there. And this is another great thing that they translated from the game, because at this point in The Last of Us Part 2 is the first time that you can really sick groups of enemies onto each other. So the infected are distracted by the WLF. They get into them, and Ellie and Dina use this moment to try and make an escape by going into one of the abandoned subway trains. But it's not long until the infected realize that they're in there too. So there's this really kind of claustrophobic scene where they're going through this abandoned train cart that's full of skeletons, and then there are clickers and runners and everything coming at them from all sides. It gets pretty messy. They have to try and shoot a few of them to get through. But eventually they get out. They make it to a revolving door to get out, which is kind of jammed. And the infected are catching up to them. One of them reaches to bite Dina, and Ellie puts her hand in front, and it bites her instead. So she's basically saved her from this moment. And it's enough for them to get away, and the infected get jammed in the revolving door, and they make it out of there. Let's talk about this action sequence. Like I said, it plays exactly pretty much the same from the game. From the escaping the TV station, you basically run down into the subway, you deal with the infected, you go through the subway trains, you go through the revolving door. It was all there. So that was quite exciting. But how did you feel about this action being translated onto the screen?
Yeah, I was impressed just how, and this isn't a criticism, but how video gamey it did feel. It really felt like they translated the video gaminess to the screen, even to the level of the WLF soldiers calling out to each other, being like, I don't care if it's a man, woman, child, baby, fan out, find these people. It just sounded like conversations that they would have in The Last of Us Part 2.
The only thing that would have made it more video gamey is if when she stabbed the one in the neck, someone else went, "No, Danny!"
Yeah, that would have been great. But yeah, I thought that was really well handled. And just
even
how...
her jumping on the back of him and holding him around. I was like, that's
I was
exactly how it
saying the
happens.
whole time, I was out loud yelling, "Just use the knife, stab him in the neck, just stab him in the neck." She finally does,
because she didn't want to kill him at first, right?
For way too long.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just thought it was so cool. And I think this is the scene, right, also where you see what the Seraphites have done to some of the WLF. So I was kind of alluding to yeah, so this is the fun kind of, we've seen the kind of good side of the Seraphites, and this is now what okay, these guys are actually they mean business when they want to. So I really like that juxtaposition of seeing that. But yeah, just
and also,
just sweeping. Yeah, sorry, Lauren, you go.
well, just also on that point, that they are more ritualistic in their killing, whereas we'd seen them come across that group of dead Seraphites and they had just been gunned down, right, and just kind of left there to rot. Whereas this was a message. They killed them, they opened their guts, and they strung them up by their necks, and then wrote a message in blood. This was very, very intentional. So yeah, I think it's definitely a big 180 from what we thought they might have been like in that episode 3.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, just really cool stuff. And yeah, I love how sweeping this kind of sequence is, and of going to the TV station, they're going underground, and the momentum just built and built. And I thought yeah, just really well handled, and culminating in that gate moment, I thought was excellent.
And this is most of the episode. This whole action sequence lasts I don't know, probably 20 minutes or so, because you go from this TV station out into the rain, down in the subway, and then out at the end. And I think that the Last of Us TV show has done a great job of translating the story beats of The Last of Us. I don't know if I've felt as authentically living in The Last of Us game, doing these actual gameplay segments than I did in this episode, and I thought it translated perfectly. We had the blankets up to our eyes, my heart was beating so fast, and it's why am I so nervous right now? I know what happens. I know that both these characters are going to be okay, because I've played the games, but they did such a great job of ratcheting that tension up, of introducing the WLF, having them run out there, and then going back down into the subway and bringing out these kind of two factions to kind of pit against each other. And I thought I thought it was fantastic. I think that both Bella Ramsey and Isabella Merced do great kind of like we're terrified looks. I haven't seen Alien Romulus, but like I can see is like Isabella Merced particularly, like you have a knack for this. Like this is something you are very good at doing, is running for your life. And so I got to watch Romulus now because I need to see more of this.
Yeah, well, fun fact, because Fede Alvarez was very inspired by Ellie and Dina's relationship for Alien Romulus, which is ironic because she ended up playing Dina. So yeah, go check it out. I think the only thing that maybe would have like enhanced this is if Ellie had thrown a brick or something that like set the infected onto the WF. That would have been cool. I also thought it was interesting, like, you know, when they're going through the train cart and the like infected are like scrabbling at the walls and they're kind of like that bendy part of the train is like moving. I'm like, oh, it feels like when you're in like a haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights or something.
Did not like that. That made me very uncomfortable. Just the idea of I don't all those hands gripping at you with like this just thick fabric on the other
Yeah.
side. No
Yeah.
thanks.
If this isn't translated into one of those Halloween mazes, I'm going to
Ooh.
be so shocked. It was cool. Also, a fun thing that I learned from watching those like behind the scenes packages after the episode is that all those WLF soldiers in the TV station were actual people. Like they got real stunt people up in harnesses and strung them up for the scene instead of getting like models and things, which I thought was fascinating. Imagine that being your job that day, just being like, I'm going to sit in a harness and pretend to be dead all day.
Yeah, just hanging out, you know. That's
Take a nap.
Literally.
It's fun.
Crazy. Anyway, great sequence. So picking up after this, Ellie and Dina shelter in this old theater, and immediately Dina has a gun on Ellie because she's just seen Ellie get bitten right in front of her. And in Dina's mind, that means that she has to kill her best friend now. But of course, we know that's not the case. And Ellie tries to convince Dina that it's not the case, that she is immune, which naturally Dina doesn't believe because who would? So Ellie says, listen, just wait the night out. In the morning, you're going to see that I'm going to wake up. I'm going to be fine. And that's what happens. Dina keeps the gun on her all night. And in the morning, when Ellie wakes up, she's still herself. So then we have this kind of reckoning where Dina's trying to be like, wait, now you're actually okay. And it kind of culminates in this moment where Dina approaches Ellie, drops the gun, says, I'm pregnant, and then kisses her. And this is like the release of all that romantic tension that we've been building up to. And in the next morning, they're still in this kind of love-struck haze. And Ellie questions Dina, you know, like, why now? Why are we together now? And Dina reveals that like her mother was homophobic and told her that, you know, she couldn't like girls. So she's repressed all these feelings until now. But the thought of losing Ellie and this life that she wanted was so powerful that when she had this chance to have it back, she just had to take it. And so then, of course, they move on to the pregnancy. That was another big revelation that came up. Ellie's going to be a dad, guys. Congratulations, Ellie. Of course, Jesse's actually the biological dad, but they're all having a baby. It's wonderful. So this is a very sweet moment. And then just quickly to cap off the episode, this is all interrupted by the sound of an explosion outside and some talk on the radio that reveals they hear some WLF chatter, and the name Nora gets thrown around, which gets Ellie's attention. So they go up on the roof to see if they can figure out where this is coming from. And they see that there's like a big explosion in the distance. And it doesn't look good. So Ellie turns to Dina and says, listen, just think about it. Like, things are different now. You don't have to come with me. And Dina thinks about it. And she's like, no, we're doing this together. And so that's how the episode ends. Let's run over everything that just happened because this was a lot. How do we feel about it?
Yeah, and I thought it was amazing. Like, I thought this whole thing was so just like the way that you know, Ellie trying to convince Dina, like that whole interplay I thought was fascinating. Like, we talked a lot about the chemistry between Bella and Isabella said. Like, I think them at odds is like equally as like fun to watch. And that was proven here. And going back to the thing with Isabella Merced's like kind of reactions to Ellie, because when you see her with the gun pointed to her when Ellie's sleeping, all you see, instead of seeing Dina's reaction, it's just a flashlight kind of obscuring her, so you don't really know what she's thinking as Ellie's kind of waking up and trying to like say like, hey, like, see, I've woken up, and so you don't get that kind of rumination, but you can kind of like imply it. And then when you find the flashlight finally goes off and you see Dina's reaction, like I don't know, it just I loved how that was handled. I thought that was really good. And um going back to kind of like the my kind of not issues but like questions of them removing the weed scene and them kind of shifting like uh the way their relationship played out. I take all that back because I think I do prefer how it plays out in the show. This the way that their relationship builds up feels so much more earned, and the way it culminates in this moment, when the two like properly kiss and do all those things.
And what, Tom?
You can watch the episode. It's a family friendly show. But I just thought like it was like beautiful. I thought it was so cool. And then the morning after, when they talk about the pregnancy, and even like the almost visual gag of Dina pulling out pregnancy tests, like
Yes.
I just loved. So I've gushed about it a lot. But yeah, great scene.
How do we feel about the change in, I guess, Ellie's reaction to this whole thing? Because in the games, I've seen a lot of conversation about this since the episode aired. In the game, Ellie is very notably like mad. She's like, why are you telling me this now? How long have you known? Whereas this seems very much like Bella's Ellie is, she's on board. She's going to be a dad. I had no issue with it when it happened, and I saw people pointing out. I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is a little different than the game. Um, I think that they both work for me, especially with the changing of circumstances here, because this was kind of this like culmination where Dina thought this person that she maybe potentially at some point wanted to spend the rest of her life with was dead and had kind of mourned her almost, and is now being given a second lease on that and being able to actually express those feelings because she thought they were all gone. And so it's a much more positive vibe, whereas in the game it is almost like it's a very desperate moment where Dina reveals this information and Ellie kind of snaps back at her.
I liked it as well because this is initially, yeah, in the game it's all very different context. And it's quite a negative moment. It's meant to be a testing moment in their relationship where they've come on this journey so far, and now will this be the thing that kind of tests them? It's also a testament in the game to like how far down this path of vengeance Ellie is, because she's like, you being pregnant is just an inconvenience at this point. You're a burden. That's what she says. And that never really sat right with me. But I understood because that's that version of the character. And at that point in the game, you've killed so many people. You're really close to being the point of too far gone. Whereas that's not the case here. Like their relationship is still very new, and they've only just sort of started on this path of vengeance, which I'm sure is going to escalate in the coming episodes. But I think for the way that it fits into the show now, it makes sense for this version of these characters. And so I liked that they switched it from a negative scene to being a positive one. It was just warm and lovely. And like you say, Tom, like their Bella and Isabella's version of Ellie and Dina, I think I'm just completely sold in it. It's come together so nicely, even though I had like those trepidations to begin with, like why aren't they following it like the game? But I don't mind now because we have this different version that feels right for this TV show, and I'm fine with it. The only minor thing, which I'm interested to see if you guys feel this way as well, is I felt like a lot of things maybe just happened too quickly. It was like the triple whammy of I'm immune, I'm pregnant, and now I'm kissing you. So I think I just maybe wanted the pregnancy moment to come the next day or something like that, just to have a moment to breathe of it being like, oh, okay, finally they're together now. They can be together. And then adding on to, okay, also I'm pregnant. Is this an issue? How are we going to work through this? And maybe they could have talked about it the morning after. I'm not sure. Like it does work, but I just sort of felt like, hang on a minute. I'm still thinking about this thing that's happening. And you've also thrown in that she's pregnant, which I'm not surprised by, but people probably are.
Yeah, it is a lot of information to be like throwing around at once, but I don't know. I thought it worked in just the way of when Dina says I'm pregnant. Like in Ellie's mind, it like you put it perfectly, Lauren, in kind of like how, but I think both versions of Ellie's reaction are valid, and I think the way that Bella's version of it in the show, like I think it completely works for this season. And I do like the fact that like yeah, Dina's just like I'm pregnant, and it's like not even a concern for this version of Ellie. Like she doesn't even care really, and I kind of like that. And then they kind of the morning after they kind of discuss it a bit more. So yeah, for me, I thought it was okay, but I can totally see how it is information overload in that moment.
I think in the moment as it's happening, it's supposed to be information overload because it is
Mhm.
this explosion of all these things have happened, whether it's this pent up sexual energy between the two of them, and Dina thought she was dead. Like Dina, the second she sees that bite, she sees it happen right away, and is very clearly like, I now have to grapple with killing this person that I may or may not have feelings for, and then it's just this like, boom, this is happening, and this like firework moment almost. I do think that the maybe the pregnancy information could have waited because I don't know how like why that is like I guess it's just she's just things are pouring out of her mouth at that point. It's just like let's get it all out there. Sometimes you have those moments or you lose control in that sort of way, but yeah, I it didn't really bug me at all. And then we do explore the pregnancy a little bit the next day. Um
Maybe
Getting
it was
into
just like
the
it.
tests and
Maybe I would have sat better if it was just like a reordering of the moments where it was like she
yeah.
could say, "Oh my gosh, okay, so you're immune, you're alive, you're Ellie," then kiss her, and then maybe have a moment of like, "Also, I'm pregnant," and then for Ellie to then accept that, then they can like go into the next, sort of like have the sex scene without it sort of being like a big jumble of emotion. But I mean, it was very honest, it was very authentic, so I don't have a huge issue with it. I just remember thinking while I was watching it, like, hang on a minute, let this moment have a second to breathe before bringing in that next thing.
I am glad we did the next day because when they did the hard like they kiss, they go onto the ground and they did the hard cut, I thought that is a way to end an episode. And then they pick it up and I'm happy we almost
Yeah,
got that little bit of okay, let's let's get the ball rolling towards these next 3 weeks and where we're going next as opposed to just cutting hard right there. I do think that would have been a way to end an episode and would have worked very strongly, but almost getting to explore that the pregnancy information, getting a little bit more into Dina's head. And I guess that's when we learn about her mom and stuff like that. That to
that was
me
great.
Yeah,
was very, very beneficial and totally works for me for the character and explains to me why this Dina has been the way that she has leading up to this point.
Yeah, I'm glad that they included that because I had been having all those questions up until this point. Even last week, I was like, wait, why are they like erasing her like queerness? But then obviously not. But I'm glad that they took the time to have that for Dina's character because there's nothing really like it. There's no sort of topics like that are brought up in the Last of Us game, at least. It's all just like, this is how they are, which is how it should be, except for homophobic Seth, of course, who was there to remind us. Um, but I think it was nice to have that in like such a big mainstream show like The Last of Us.
There was something they did with styling Bella from this moment. Like we cut from black, we wake up, and I'm not going to be one of the people on the internet who are like, "This isn't my Ellie. It looks nothing like." I do think that Bella's Belly, um, does look and maybe play a little younger than the Ellie in The Last of Us Part 2. I don't think it's a bad thing. However, when we pick up and Ellie is standing there in this like kind of I guess like navy t-shirt and jeans, there was something about that particular look where I was like, "Oh, that's Last of Us Part 2 Ellie." It
Yeah.
clicked in for me right in that moment. It almost was if she'd like matured 5
mm,
years, this character, in a matter of a few minutes, and I think it was just taking the jacket she was wearing off.
Yeah.
hmm
I
yeah.
also love that moment when they're talking about the tattoo and the first bite mark that Ellie had. And she's like, "Oh, you did the chemical burn yourself." She's like, "Yeah, I really wanted to wear short sleeves again."
There were some lines this week. There were some
Some
really
great
good there were
ones.
some bangers.
yeah.
Something else I wanted to talk about just briefly. Shimmer, where is she? Where did they leave her behind? where is Shimmer? At least at this point, Shimmer's alive. So I'm happy about that. If that's one character who doesn't have to die in the show, I'll be grateful, but I'm worried about her.
Yeah. I wonder if they'll start the next episode and be like, and we've just got Shimmer back, and now we're off to go and do the rest of the episode.
Jesse just stumbled upon it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a bit worrying. Like, what's going on there? I hope Shimmer's okay.
I didn't even think about it. So Shimmer's in the music store. That's the
Yeah.
last.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just
yeah.
hanging out. There was grass there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
She has Bob Marley. There's grass.
it'll be fun.
Great
You know.
life.
I know. It's better than the what she
Anyway.
gets in the game.
I hope that if they have left that like plot thread untied, that it will come back around and maybe Shimmer ends up somewhere else by the end of the show. But anyway, and the only other thing is Shamblers. Not in the scene, which is where they were introduced in the game in the subway tunnels. Played through that last night, hated it. But yeah, they haven't been introduced at this point in the show, which I don't mind because instead we got this crazy horde of all sorts of infected attacking them in the tunnels, which I think more than made up for it. But I do wonder if they're coming in this show at all. Do we think we need them, or are bloaters enough?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but maybe they're saving them for next season, if anything, because we have the stalkers introduced, but then we also have like the ice infected as well.
True.
So they could throw a curveball and be like, okay, we're going to introduce all these different infected, and Shambler's one of them. So it could be coming, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we have to wait until season 3 to see a
And I don't
Shambler.
feel like I would be like feeling duped by the end of this if we don't get them, just because
No.
the infected in this show, as opposed to the games where you are constantly like coming up against them, the infected in this show very rarely are like primary characters, and it's one or two action sequences. I do think that this season, for the people who last season were complaining, where are the zombies in my zombie show,
Yeah.
have definitely up the ante. And looking at like the trailer we got for next week, we're getting a little more some fungal growth. I'll say that. And I think that there is now the opportunity down the line based on that to introduce some more creative infected that we haven't seen before and make it make sense in the universe. I didn't think you needed it there. If we were actually playing through this sequence like it plays in the game, where they stealth a little bit more and maybe get out without being seen, sure, introduce a new infected that you could sick on the WF. But the fact that the WLF just get torn apart within seconds because there's hundreds of these infected, it didn't need anything. That horde was scary enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like the way that the infected have been progressively introduced in the show feels naturally ramping up. So I think either it'll be like a finale thing where they introduce this crazy new infected, or it will be, or they may not show up at all and they might just save, the big guy for next season. Which would be fine, I think, because like you say, we encounter them so often in the game that they kind of become like hearsay, whereas in the show, people are much less familiar with them. And so drip feeding it seems like the right thing to do. I would love it if they could surprise us, like maybe with something we hadn't seen before, but who knows?
Infected Joel.
Was there any? What?
Infected Joel
coming after
Oh
Dina
my
and Ellie.
god.
Oh my god.
Trauma all over again.
Any other things you guys want to touch on before we get into our categories?
Not really. The only thing that I wanted to ask the two of you is, we're now more than halfway. We have 3 episodes left. So like, I guess we could do light spoilers, but how do we see these next 3? Where are we going? Because that is right now, we're still relatively early in the game, and we've got, I guess, another season after this, but I'm trying to figure out, as a Last of Us fan, how we navigate this story to end season 2 in a satisfying way, and still accomplish everything we need to.
Well, I think personally, I'm sticking to the outline that I had from our primer episode. It's kind of, I've had some, obviously, things be wrong, but for the most part, it's kind of going the way I thought it would, which is that this is Ellie's half of the season. Ellie's half of the show, sorry. And so I think we've covered day one. This ends where day one ends. Day two will be, well, like basically next episode will be going to find Nora, and probably I think day two ends in the hospital, or it could be coming back to the theater. That seems to be where they come back to after each day. And then I do think six is flashbacks, all flashbacks. And then the finale will end where the game splits, like with the day three going through the aquarium and then ending at the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we don't know how long each episode's going to be too, so that
They've been
could
beefy
factor
so
in.
far, like almost
Yeah.
an hour every time, which is great.
Yeah.
Because if you take out all of the gameplay, it's not a very long story. Like a lot of
Yeah.
it is searching for this thing. Like last night, I've been playing the game this time around with modifiers so that I don't need to worry about finding ammo and things like that. It's a really quick experience if you're not always searching for things or dying constantly. So I think you can probably get through it pretty easily in the next three episodes.
I did say when they were going through the pharmacy to Gabby as we were watching, I was like, this is 90% of the Last of Us experience right here. Just opening
Honestly.
drawers, getting some pills to upgrade yourself, which actually thinking about now is maybe a little problematic. I never put that together, but medication gives you
Vitamins.
bonus points, I guess. And
Come-
yeah, I was waiting for her to ask about, like, did you find any rubbing alcohol or tape or scissors?
No
But
mealies
no.
so far.
Mhm.
Yeah, true. Not upgraded wooden planks or anything like that.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get that eventually. But yeah, I'm confident that we'll get into a two place and not feel like we've rushed it too much. But yeah, there was a point in this episode where I wondered whether like it was going to be a day one Ellie, day one Abby, and like maybe it'll because it's called day one,
Mhm.
and we'll get both,
Yeah.
but I guess they aren't. They are sticking to how it is structured in the game, and fair play. Like I think that's the way to go, really. But yeah, it is fascinating.
Is
I'm
next
interested to
episode day
see,
two? Like, is it
maybe.
called day two?
I don't know if they've announced it yet.
I don't
No,
think
they
they
don't
have
until like the
any
day.
titles out,
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
but I'm assuming it will be day two.
If that's the case, if that's what they're doing with season 2 and 3, as a game fan, I'm a huge fan of that. I want to see how TV audiences take that
Yeah,
sort of thing,
Yes. I
because
think
it's
people
a
will be
little different.
mad if they end it where they ended in the game. But we were mad too.
I think they're
And
going
that's what
to.
keeps you coming back.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, what we're talking about next week, like you say, if you looked at the previews, it does look like there's a few new things. There seems to be maybe more of Isaac next week, or at least more of the WLF with characters we haven't seen before. That's quite interesting to me. Also, potentially some time with Seraphites we haven't seen before, or maybe it's just a lead into maybe Ellie's first interaction with the Seraphites. So that's all quite exciting. And Spores are back. That's exciting.
Yeah,
I like that. I'm excited for that.
it took us two
Yeah.
and a bit years, but finally spores. It's very exciting.
I'm very interested to see how they explain that logic. I was almost, I mean, we'll talk about it next week once we've seen it, but I'm like, are we getting a hint at, the big guy next week?
That would be cool. That would be cool.
Or is it Shamblers? I don't know. It
I
didn't
think we
look very good
could.
down there.
I have a feeling that where we see the spores in that setting in the trailer is the basement of,
Yeah,
or
right?
some subfloor of the hospital, and the
It looks
reason that
like it.
they're there is because, like, this universe's infection, I think this is ground zero. This is where it all started, so everything is just so much further evolved here than it would have been anywhere else. And the climate helps. It's moist, the fungus can grow nicely. So that's how they're going to make sense. And then I think they tee it up. We don't see it. We'll hear it. The ground will shake something where.
Yeah. And we'll be like, we know, but
Yeah.
they don't know,
Mhm.
which is always fun. All right, quickly. Best moment. Are we all agreed on the same one, or do we have different ones?
I mean, I think
There's a
mine
lot.
is there are
It's true.
a lot to pick from. I think mine is the whole sequence of Ellie, trying to convince Dina of the infection, until she's immune, and then all that leads after that, and the pregnancy announcement and all this stuff. I thought that whole bit I thought was amazing. So that's probably my pick.
Yours, Klein?
I think that It's the aha sequence. It's so good. Take on me, fantastic. But special shout out to the Isaac opening. Really liked it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm splitting hairs to pick between both of yours, but I think it's probably the guitar, the serenading scene. It's just so good. Best performance. This is a tough one. Or line, if you had a good line. I liked the short sleeves line.
That was a good
Or
one.
maybe they're just optimists.
Yeah, I had that one written down.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to, I don't know the exact line, but the kiss after they wake up, and Dina goes, "Ew, morning breath. Here's some beef jerky." Because as we
Yeah.
all know, the cure to morning breath, some salted meat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yum.
That was funny.
I think my best performance, it probably is Jeffrey Wright's Isaac, but I mean, shout out to
Yeah.
Isabella Merced's reactions, just her reactions and her
Mhm.
facial
Her
expressions.
holding the gun will haunt me with the tears
Yeah.
coming down her face. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think it's Isabella for me this week. It was Bella last week. I think it's Isabella for me in this episode. And then favorite game Easter egg.
Ooh.
The mention of space. When they open that tank, they're laying the seeds, and I really like that.
Well, my question for this segment is that we talked about there being dinosaurs each episode. Did we see a dinosaur this episode?
I was thinking about that. I didn't spot one. Maybe we'll have to
Okay.
ask Daniel. He
Yeah,
saw one.
potentially. So, yeah, I think just in terms of it's not really an Easter egg, but the take on me sequence kind of. I mean, it's an optional thing. I'm just glad it was in the show, so I guess it's that for me. But yeah, what about you, Lauren?
I actually didn't think of one before we got here, so that's really great. I quite liked the flares in the subway tunnel just
Yeah.
because of how it lit them
Yeah.
up in red, and it's also red in the tunnel in the game, so that was quite fun. Yeah, I have some great side by side photos from the game and the episode this
I can
week.
imagine, because it was so spot on.
So
To this point,
accurate,
when
yeah.
you said you were playing the game along with the show, I was wondering how you were achieving that, because there were some things so drastically changed. And I think maybe episode 2 or I think it was episode 2, the game story doesn't actually move that much, because they introduced this whole new horde thing coming in and leading into Joel's death. So I was wondering how you're doing that, but this one was so spot on that, yeah, those side by sides would be fantastic. If we're gonna give an award at the end of this for the best use of those weird TV LED lights that I have taped to the back of my television, those flares were really good,
Yeah,
because they
cool.
started
Ooh.
throwing them and you could see them travel across the screen behind the TV as they kind of went
Oh,
and
that's
landed.
cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think to your point about playing the game, it's really, I haven't had to do much for the last few weeks. And now it's it's all
Now
going
we're
to be in the
moving.
next 3 weeks. Now I have to play it all. Because really, I think it's I think I'm up 5.5 hours now. So a lot of that, it's a long opening, which is probably 2.5. And then up until now, it's I played through it all last night. So now we're moving quickly, but up until now, I've had a bit of a break.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Ellie's sequence is 10 or 12, maybe a
Yeah,
little
I think they're
longer.
about 10 each. Yeah.
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 And then another 2 at the end.
Depends how many times you look through drawers meaninglessly.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
All right.
That's it. Is that everything?
That's it. Cordyceps
so.
Club for another week. Done.
Excellent. You can let us know what you thought about Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4 over on YouTube. Our question of the week, please leave us a comment down below. What did you think of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4, Day 1? That's what it's called. We'll see if next week is Day 2. I'm still waiting for Pearl Jam. When are we getting it? It's coming. It has to come.
Yeah.
They've talked about it. That is also where over on YouTube, here on Spotify, wherever you can leave us a comment what you've been playing. So let's get into that very quickly before we go. Anything of note? Anything exciting that we've been playing over the last week? Lauren, you said Last of Us Part 2. Anything else? South of Midnight still?
Haven't had time this week, so just Last of Us. Nothing new to add.
A flawed game, right, Tom?
Hey, I mean, you can listen to our bonus episode if you want to hear what the context of that little comment was. But yeah,
Great
definitely.
segue.
Yeah. But as for flawed games that I've been playing this week, I've been playing. Well, I've been going back into the backlog because I realized I have so many games, guys. I don't, and this is not a unique problem among gamers, but my backlog is just it's stupid. Like I have so many games that I bought, and I'm like, I'll save them for later, and I never get around to them. So I'm like, okay, I'm finally gonna go through this because it's just frustrating me. So one game I've been playing quite a lot recently is Stellar Blade, which is a game from last year. It basically is kind of like an action game similar to Nier Automata, another game I played last year. And it's similar in concept in this like an action game where you basically fight people with swords. You're playing as this. I don't really know if she's a robot or if she's a human enhanced with robotics or what, but you play as this character called Eve, and you're basically fighting these creatures called Natibas who have kind of taken over Earth. A very similar kind of setup to Nier Automata, where that was robots who've kind of taken over Earth in that game. So there are definitely a lot of similarities here. And I'm really enjoying it. I think the game is a lot of fun. I will say off the top, up top, the game's gratuitous. The game is very sexy in its presentation. So for some people, I'm sure that would maybe like rub people the wrong way and not be everyone's cup of
But
tea.
not you, right, Tom? Not you at all.
What can I say? I'm a gamer, but no. But looking past all that, I think there is genuinely a very good game here. The combat in it is like incredible. I think Nier's. I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons in here because it is very similar. But Nier, I think the combat I really enjoyed, but it was a little bit simple for me in some aspects. This feels a little bit deeper, where there's a little bit more of like combos you can do, and different abilities you can get. You can do like if you time your attacks, if you time your dodges or your blocks, you can basically do perfect parries or perfect dodges, and that unlocks different attacks and just allows you to be more streamlined with your combat and your flow. So I think that is what's like why I'm sticking around, because the combat is incredible and the boss fights are really fun. The presentation, like I mentioned, is gratuitous, but like the game does look gorgeous, and I think like atmospherically, the world that you're placed in on Earth is it looks amazing, and there's so much tonally that's going on that I think like really works, and I love just exploring the world. There's so much to look around for, and the side quests are really fun. Um, but that's all the good. The bad story, it's not great. The story and the characters, just there's not much there. The writing is pretty thin. Again, another comparison to Nier. Like Nier Automata feels like an author has come in and like really delve deep into a story, and it's wanting to talk about humanity and what it means to be alive and all these like huge existential themes. Stellblade is not that. Like it's very much like you're gonna go out and kill these creatures, and that's basically it. And that's, you know what, that's enough for me, to be honest. So it doesn't bother me that much. But yeah, I've been having fun with it. I will see this game through and then hopefully get to another game in my backlog. But yeah, that's what I've been playing this past week.
Awesome. I have started a new game here that I'm going to talk about, a 2025 game, which is very exciting because I haven't been playing a lot of those this year. And I am playing Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It came out a couple of weeks ago to rave reviews. None of us picked it up in the Fantasy Critic, which is making me just punch myself because I looked at it
Might be
over
game
and
of the
over and
year.
over again. Lauren, it's my game of the year so far. I loved Blueprints. I did end up rolling credits on Blueprints. It is amazing. That game is absolutely incredible. Clair Obscur, I don't know how this exists. Like the trailers, the first thing we all said when we saw it was, yeah, but it's not going to play like that. It looks too good. It does. And it was made by this small team in France. It's their first game. I knew the story. If you don't know, it's an RPG taking pages out of classic Square Enix RPGs like Final Fantasy. Even there's some Persona DNA in there with a incredible voice cast that includes Andy Serkis and Charlie Cox, who Charlie Cox is chef's kiss, absolutely incredible in this game. But the story is you live in this fantasy world that's very, very based in like French vibes almost. Like it's not mythology or anything. It is a very, very francophone game. And in this universe, I guess like 67 years ago, before the game takes place, at 100, a mysterious being showed up with a pedestal on the horizon and wrote the number 100, and everyone who was 100 years old died. And or everyone who's older than 100 died. And every year since then, it has gone down one. And now we are at 34, going over to 33. And so the oldest people in this world are in their 30s, and they're called old men and women and senior citizens, because everyone knows that once the clock ticks over, that's it. But with each of these kind of new numbers, the citizens of this universe send out an expedition of people around that age to maybe bring down the paintress, who is this weird being who I haven't actually met yet. But and the idea is not to finish the job, that would be ideal, but it's more to leave behind what you learn and enough information. So over time, the path getting there has been, there's ladders set up over here by one expedition. They were the climbing expedition, so they set up all these ladders, and there's people who've done this and there's people who've done that. But what I wasn't expecting is, I know that that sounds very grim and very dark, but I wasn't prepared for the Last of Us 1 level opening 45 minutes of this game, where I'm sitting here having just met these characters, sobbing my eyes out because of an event that happens literally in the prologue. This is absolutely incredible. It's 25 hours, which is just amazing to me, that this JRPG experience isn't going to go on for 100 hours or longer. It seems like every hour or so something happens where, again, I am bawling my eyes out, and I've fallen in love with it. I don't have a lot of experience with Charlie Cox because I haven't watched Daredevil. I've only seen Born Again. I really liked him in Born Again, but what he's doing here is just, it's like some of the best video game voice acting I've ever seen. I can't believe that this is this team's first game. It makes no sense. It feels impossible. And so yeah, it's incredible. It's on Game Pass right now. That's how I'm playing it. I renewed my Game Pass on PC, and worth every penny.
Yeah,
What's the combat like?
Sorry.
Oh, so
Uh,
it's turn-based, but this is another thing that I absolutely love. I like a turn-based game, whether it's like Pokemon, where you're just like, you hit the button and you do the attack, but this is way more active. So when you hit the button, it's kind of like Paper Mario would be the closest comparison, where I pick an attack, and then they're going to have button prompts that will like show up on the screen, and you have to hit them, but you don't have to hit them to get damage. You can hit them to get kind of bonus damage. And it also means that when the other people are attacking you, you have a dodge and a parry that you can use as well. And so most of the fights I'm getting through, I have it turned down on easy because I'm not trying to impress anyone. Most of the parrying and stuff, it is quite difficult to figure out when it comes in, but when you get in that rhythm, there are fights I'm going through where it's like, oh, I know these enemies, and I'll just go through completely unscathed. And so it's giving me a little bit more to do in the turn-based stuff than a typical like Final Fantasy would. It's a great combat system, and I think it's winning over a lot of people who don't traditionally play these kind of games, because it is a little more involved. You're getting some of that like Soulsian influence almost in there for people who played like Bloodborne and stuff like that.
Cool.
yeah, I'm very glad to see that this game was successful. Like, and like President Macron, like President of France, like came out and was like congratulating the team for this game, which is like,
Really?
yeah, really
Yeah,
cool. Like, I was like, this
3
is
million
insane.
units or something. It sold in like a week.
Yeah, which
It's
is
so good.
nuts for like a new IP, like from a new studio. I think it's just so cool. And when we were talking about it before, Climb, but when you mentioned 25 hours long, I was like, I need to play this because like that's music to my ears. So
I know it's so. I've
I
had
definitely
two
play at some
sessions
point.
with it in this massive RPG. I've had two sessions, and I'm like a quarter of the way through the game.
Yeah,
It's just, it's great, and everything is so, because it's so much shorter. Everything is, the production value is just incredible, and every level you're in, like the new areas you walk into, will just blow your mind with how beautiful and creative they are. Like this one world very early on is like called like the living sea, I think. And so you're surrounded by like fish floating around you and stuff, but you're not underwater, but you're in like almost like a big like kind of pocket of air, and it looks so cool. And the music, I'm gonna listen to this soundtrack for a long time. It just does everything at such a high level that it's really hard to see any flaws. I've had a crash. That's about it. That's about all I can complain about. But that's PC gaming.
Indeed. Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely pick it up at some point this year. Like, because it sounds
Don't forget that
very good.
backlog.
Yeah, don't remind me. It's so tough.
Yeah. Clair Obscur. It's really good. I think it's my game of the year so far until Tony Hawk comes out in just a few weeks.
And there's
That's
no
gonna do it.
competition.
Yeah, I know. That's going to do it for this episode of Controller Club. As always, you can follow the show at Controller Club Pod on Instagram and Blue Sky, Controller_Club on TikTok, and Controller.Club on TikTok. Controller_Club on Twitter, Controller.Club on TikTok. Mix that up. Also, guess what? You can watch the video version of the podcast if you're listening over on Spotify. We have a YouTube channel. Come subscribe, leave us a comment, hit the bell, do the thumbs up, and rate and review us wherever you're listening on podcast services around the globe. 5 stars. It really helps out. Tom, where can people keep up with you in all your adventures online?
Yeah, you can find me at Tom Duart, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, everywhere on the internet. Yeah, nothing going on. So
Wow.
check in there. Maybe something.
Okay, cool. I like it. Lauren, what about you? You got nothing going on? You're like Tom, carefree?
You can follow me at lrouse19 on the socials. Rouse spelt as in house. I've got some articles up about this episode of The Last of Us on thedirect.com if you are curious about things like why the WLF and Seraphites are fighting or things like that. I am answering those questions on the direct. Yeah, that's it for me this week.
Great. You can keep up with me everywhere. I'm at the Kleinfelt, TheKleinFelt. That's going to wrap up this episode of Controller Club. Only 3 more episodes of The Last of Us left, and we will be done. Absolutely wild. Thank you so much for listening. Now, let's get gaming.